Come on! Death Mountain won't climb itself.
Hey guys, back at it again with another video. Today, I'll be talking about Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, so be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. Now, let's get on with the video. I started writing this script with the following achievements in the game. I finished the main story, unlocked all 18 available characters, completed all of the side missions. The only thing left that I've yet to complete is this one side quest that needs a little bit of Korok seed hunting. Other than that, and reaching the level cap for all 18 playable characters, I've basically had enough experience playing the game to qualify making a video out of its contents. This video is not solely a game review. It's also going to be a ranting session. It's gonna have theories and assumptions pertaining to where the timeline of this game truly takes place in. Is it a prequel, an unintentional sequel, non-canon, or the start of an alternate timeline within the era of myth, which is when the events of Breath of the Wild take place in? I'm gonna tackle all of those things, but you should take everything I say in this video with a grain of salt. It's my opinion, so everything I show in this video is how I interpret what I've absorbed so far with the game in question. The reason why I wanted to do a video like this for Age of Calamity is because of the many negative reactions I've seen people have with the game. I want to try to defend it as best as I can, because this game doesn't deserve to be shunned into oblivion, at least not yet. Not until Breath of the Wild 2 has been released. My time playing Age of Calamity was an overall good experience. I would say that what I found most interesting in this game's story was that it involved time travel. I have a soft spot when it comes to anything that involves time travel, be it in movies, books, TV shows, anything. As long as it's time travel, I will almost always enjoy it. The time travel in Age of Calamity kicks off the game's story. There's even a subtle symbolism shown when Link first encounters Terraco, the time-traveling robot egg from a not-so-far-ahead future. He is covered in butterflies, which directly implies the good old butterfly effect, where a single flap of a butterfly's wings can cause a string of events that deeply impact the state of future events that are yet to unfold. This is evident to how the game itself unapologetically deviates from the original timeline of Breath of the Wild's backstory. Before the game was released, it was commercialized as a game that is set 100 years before the events of Breath of the Wild, though that doesn't necessarily mean that the game's ending will or should meet the same outcome as what we've already seen in the open world Zelda game. By changing the outcome of the game's ending due to there being time travel involved, the game became ultimately more interesting to play. I wanted to see a better ending to the game, to the story itself. If I had just watched the champions die, Link suffering critical damage from fighting off the Guardians, and Zelda not being able to use her powers until the very last minute, I would have been disappointed with this game. I would never have bought it in the first place, never would have even thought of buying it if I knew that it was gonna end at the very beginning of Breath of the Wild. I literally bought this game with the knowledge that it was gonna end differently. I watched a spoiler review of the game and I immediately ordered it online. I wanted to see for myself how that story would play out. I wanted to see what would have happened if things took a different turn. I wanted redemption for how formulaic Breath of the Wild's ending felt when I had finished the game's main story. Age of Calamity not only brings a solid game, but also delivers a more solid story compared to its predecessor. While not being an actual Zelda game title, Age of Calamity still feels as though it's part of the Zelda timeline. As I've mentioned, this game doesn't end where Breath of the Wild begins, which sounds like it should immediately fall into the non-canon category, but it doesn't. This game, despite being in a different timeline, still shares the same world as Breath of the Wild. The events may be different because of the time travel, but the world isn't. It's a new branch in the era of myth. It has the same kind of stakes as Link's Awakening or Majora's Mask, where both games' events mentioned are still considered part of the timeline, despite being set in either a dream or a parallel world. Age of Calamity falls in the same category, and we could easily brand this game to be set in an alternate reality. Nintendo clearly plans to make more Zelda game titles in the years to come, and for what they did with the ending of Age of Calamity, it brings forth the possibility, or even a simple excuse, excuse for making more game titles. More timelines equal more games. This is already evident with what they've done in the franchise's history. Ocarina of Time is one of the best games in the series, and it's also the main reason why there have been 3 timelines before the era of Myth, and the result of Ocarina of Time's ending paved the way for split timelines. So why would they stop there if doing so clearly means that they could make more games, hence more money for the company? To me, Age of Calamity doesn't even have to be part of the Zelda timeline, since it could already stand on its own with the quality of the game's story. There's a certain part of the game where it just feels as though Nintendo was looking to make a game that's on par with Avengers Endgame's third act. And they do that so well, even if it's so obvious. It's a fan service kind of a game that does what it does, and it does it well. More people should be talking about this game because of its controversial ending. Why boycott a game just because it's a Warriors game? The FPS drop issues aren't even apparent in this game. I barely cared whether it was displaying the right amount of frames or not per second, because I was ultimately hooked with the story of this game, and the FPS drops aren't as bad as people say. It's barely noticeable, and I'm even playing it on a Switch Lite, not the regular Nintendo Switch console, so it's really difficult to understand where people are coming from with this game. My theory with Age of Calamity is that it's not gonna get a sequel. It's a one and done kind of story. I don't need more of this alternate timeline. I'm content with what they've shown in this one game, and if they made a sequel to this game, it also wouldn't make sense, since it would ultimately complicate the prime timeline in Breath of the Wild. The sequel to Breath of the Wild is on its way. It's probably gonna arrive next year, and we will probably see a trailer for it on E3 this year. For them to develop an Age of Calamity sequel while they're trying to figure out what to do with Breath of the Wild sequel is just completely impossible at this point. It's gonna be a difficult task to make, since they're essentially gonna have to make 2 sequels set in the same world or atmosphere that Breath of the Wild brings, but different. That's not gonna be good for marketing or anything for that matter. What they could do is have Age of Calamity's events affect Breath of the Wild 2. There are certain characters in Age of Calamity that are literally sent into the original timeline. Whether they successfully go forwards in time to the events of Breath of the Wild's reality or Age of Calamity's reality depends on what the developers choose to do. But making these characters go into Breath of the Wild's reality while still retaining the memories that they got from Age of Calamity, that's gonna make Breath of the Wild 2's story even more interesting. And that's also gonna lead to people wanting to play Age of Calamity, since they're already clearly missing out on this gem. This results to more sales, and more sales means more games, and more games means more money. So Nintendo, don't screw this up. You've got a good game with Age of Calamity. Don't let its potential go to waste. That's all for now. What are your thoughts on Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity? If you have some theories that you want to share, go post them in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the bell to get notified for when more videos come up, and I'll see you in the next one.